Hi, welcome to the Squeaky Wheel Farm. I'm Christine, and I've got some canning to do today. Now this video is going to be about canning mushrooms, and for those of you that don't can, well, you might want to choose to pass. But I thought that I might add this because it is part of what we do on the farm. We do make an effort to preserve the food that we grow or that we acquire. You know, it does take some work, but I think in the long run, I do enjoy having these things in my pantry. So I hope that this will help somebody who's learning how to can. I'm not pretending to be an expert at this. This is how I do things. Get a good canning book. Follow the recipes that are in the book that comes with your pressure canner on how to pressure can safely. And I did come across a deal on some mushrooms the other day. They were organic and already sliced up, so how can I pass that up? Now, most of my canning I use my own produce, the stuff that I've grown myself. Mushrooms are the exception because I don't grow mushrooms. For us to be able to have mushrooms, I have to buy them at a store or at a farmer's market. So I choose to can my own because I can get a better price on a large quantity and do some canning and have them for the rest of the year. So I'll show you how I do it. These are organic mushrooms. They're sliced. They're already washed and cleaned. I'm still going to clean them anyways. Just to make sure that I've got everything out of them. I got 5 1-pound packages. I found these, they were 40% off, so they were $3.23 for a pound. So I'm gonna let these soak for about 10 minutes just to make sure that there's no dirt or growing materials on them. It's been about 10 minutes. I'm gonna give these a really good rinse because I do plan on using the mushroom broth and canning that. I like to use it when I'm making rice or soups and stews and stuff. It's just a really good soup starter, and I also put it in with, say, if I'm making a roast beef in the crock pot or something like that. I start off with that mushroom stock that just really kicks up the flavor. Now, these said pre-washed and everything, but look at the water is kind of cloudy and yucky. So I am glad that we are washing these. Now these mushrooms are organic and they were on sale because mushrooms have a very short shelf life. I've already washed my jars, hot soapy water. I gave the rings a good rinse. I have my lids over here. I haven't done anything with them yet. Sometimes I just do hot soapy water. Other times I will put them on the stove in some warm water. So basically the important thing is when you're canning is if you've got hot stuff, you keep hot stuff hot. You put them in warm jars and everything stays warm right up to the canning process because you don't want your jars cracking. Now another reason why I can mushrooms, it saves a little bit of money, but the amount of effort and work that you put into it really doesn't justify it unless you're really getting a deal or getting them for free. I will tell you that we enjoy mushrooms. I use them a lot when I'm making homemade pizza. I also put them in soups and stews and lasagna. And it's just really nice to have that added ingredient that really brings your recipe up. It makes it taste so much better. Also, mushrooms are really nutritious. They're healthy, and by doing the canning process myself, I'm aware of everything that's gone into them. Now, even though I didn't grow these myself, I am very pleased that they were organic and already sliced because that cuts down on the amount of work that I have to do. Now, the canning process does take a little while. My canner probably will only hold, I think, 13 jars of the half pints, but we'll get through this pretty quick and I'll show you how I do it. I just decided that I am going to do the hot pack method because I want to get things done quickly. So my oven is set at 170 degrees. Now I have the Presto 16 quart canner. I've held on to the box because, well, for one, it's useful to store it in. I was able to keep notes, and I know that I can fit 13 half pints into this canner, and it works pretty well. So anyway, this is what I have. This is what I'm using today. We'll be canning these mushrooms at 10 pounds, which this little weight on the top, I'll show you about that too. Now inside this pressure canner, there's a little groove. Usually it's directly under the handles, and we're going to fill it to that small groove there. For this one, I believe it's 2 quarts, but I'll let you know in a minute. Now we've got a little bit more to go. All right, we're right there. I've got a slatted spoon, and I'm just kind of push down these mushrooms just to make sure that they all get under the water. As it's finally starting to warm up and get pretty hot. So these will start to cook down. They'll turn a little browner. Now, just in case you're wondering, mushrooms do not freeze well. They will turn out to be a slimy mess. You can dehydrate mushrooms, and I have a very nice dehydrator. But when I'm making something with mushrooms, I want them ready right away. The pizzas that I make homemade, I can whip one up in 15 minutes. So I don't want to have to wait a few minutes for them to rehydrate. I don't want them to be chewy. And so mushrooms are not something that I dehydrate. Now also, when you're dehydrating mushrooms in the house, it can give your house kind of an earthy smell. And I don't really care for that either. So another reason why I don't do that. Now if you can see this, these mushrooms are starting to give off some of the air that they hold on to. The bubbles are coming to the top. They're reducing down. This was a full pan when we started, and now I think it's down to about half. We're gonna go a little bit further because I wanna get as much of the air out of these, have them reduced down as much so that I've got fully packed jars. Part of canning is just knowing that it's being resourceful and efficient, and it's making sure that you're not wasting. Now I've done this several times. I know, how to pack them and how to make sure that I don't end up with a jar that's half full of water, because that's happened to me before as well. The water in my canner started to boil, so that's ready. I'm going to turn that down a little bit. I don't want it to steam off while I'm waiting for this to get done and to get the jars all packed. As I mentioned earlier, I have my lids all ready, my rings ready, my pot ready, that vinegar ready, which I'm going to wipe off the tops of the jars just to make sure that, first of all, that there's no nicks or cuts, because that type of a jar won't seal properly. And it also takes any food residue off the top of the jar so that you can make a good seal. Some of the tools that I have, I've got a nifty funnel. It allows you to put a lot of food in here and get it into the jar instead of on the side of the jar. This tool helps you to measure the gap at the top of the jar, and it also, you can use it to debubble the jars. This is probably the most important, is for taking hot jars and putting them into the water or taking them out. This is a little magnet that I use when I'm taking the lids out of hot water and putting them onto the jars. I've got a little narrow dish that I use just to put a little vinegar in, and I just take a paper towel and just wipe off the tops of the pans. And this is the weight that I was talking about earlier that goes with my pressure canner. If you just do just this thing, that's 5 pounds. This is 10 pounds, which is what we'll be canning at today because I'm at the altitude that's what it calls for, is 10 pounds. Another ring, if I added that, would be 15. I've got canning salt. I am going to put a little bit of salt in each jar. My canning booklet, it comes with the pressure canner, and don't ever throw yours away because you will regret it. paper towels, hot pads. When this stuff comes out, it will be steaming hot out of the oven. The jars will be hot. These mushrooms will be hot. I'm doing what's called hot pack method. The broth that this is making is going to be a nice golden brown. I'm going to save that so I can cook with it. We use mushrooms on a lot of stuff. Like I said earlier, we use them in like omelets. It dresses up just a cheese omelet. If you don't have any ham, sausage, or bacon to put in it, some mushrooms will make it feel a little fancy. I've cooked steaks on the grill. We have this amazing black stone griddle. It's a griddle, 36 inches wide. You can cook hamburgers for a whole group of people all at the same time. But anyway, I've seared steaks on there and then thrown a jar of mushrooms right next to the steaks and let them warm up and just caramelize a little bit. And oh my gosh, with some onions, delicious. We use mushrooms on pizza, we use mushrooms in lasagna or mustacholi. It's just really nice having them, and they can be quite expensive if you're buying them in the store. If you buy them fresh, you know, the shelf life isn't very long, and if you're buying them already canned, you get this tiny little dinky 4-ounce can, and really what you're getting is, you know, just a pathetic little amount. So by canning them myself, I know that we get a decent amount of mushrooms in each jar, and I know that they were canned properly and that they're healthy and nutritious, and that's why I do it. I'm going to cook these for just a few more minutes because I want it to release as much of that air as possible. Get them to cook down a bit more. It'll probably be another 10 minutes. Because we're not going fast. This is a large pot, so it takes a while. If I was doing half of this batch, it would be probably done already. And I'm just skimming some of this foam off the top because I do not want that in my jars. That golden liquid, that is mushroom broth, and it is delicious. Instead of cooking with chicken stock or beef stock, I try making a meal with mushroom stock or mushroom broth, whatever you want to call it, it is good. Salt is not required in the canning process of doing mushrooms, but it does add a little bit of flavor. And I find that I can always rinse these off if I need to do like a low sodium diet for someone. Okay, one other thing I wanted to show you is, since we're doing the hot pack method for mushrooms, we need an inch of head space. So that's all the way up to the top bridge. So you're just going to set that on the edge of the jar, and that's what we want. If we're going vertical, we want our liquids and our solids no more than that. Okay, I've got some boiling water. I'm just going to add a little at a time. Now we go through the outer edges of the mushrooms and just release any bubbles that are down in there. You wouldn't think it would happen, but there quite often are bubbles down there. Also gives you a chance to reposition the food to make sure that it's packing well. Some different things that you might have the opportunity to can. You might find that you have air spaces, or that after you've canned it, you find out that you only have a half of a jar of food rather than a whole jar. Alright, just a quick swipe around each with a little bit of vinegar on a paper towel, just to make sure that you don't have any food residue and that there's no chips in the mouth of the jar. Now I chose to put these lids in some warm water, not boiling. I didn't do anything other than I wanted to make sure that everything, since I'm doing a hot pack method, everything is the same temperature. Another thing that I do when I'm putting those lids in the pan of water just to keep them warm is I make sure that I put the right amount of lids for the batch, because I have had it where I've accidentally doubled the lid and that lid failed. I'm not exactly sure if that's the reason why it failed, or if I didn't have it tightened down properly. Maybe it was too loose. Last thing you've got to do is just put them on finger tight. Notice I'm not cranking them down. Jars are kind of warm anyway, so that's another reason why you're not going to do it too tight, just to make sure that they'll seat well. Water they go. I pre-warmed that water. The jars are hot, the water's hot. And this jar is going in. Always check your seal on your pressure canner to make sure that it's laying correctly and that it's not rolled over. Okay, the jars are in the canner. I turn the heat up and we're gonna let it go for a few minutes until we start to see steam coming out of the top. And then you'll let it steam for a few minutes after that before you put the weight on it. While I'm waiting for that to come up to pressure, I am going to clean up the kitchen a little bit, and I'll be back with you as soon as we have the steam rolling. All right, this might be difficult to show, but there is steam coming from the pressure valve. It's been about 10 minutes. I'm going to go ahead and put this 10-pound weight on the top. You'll see that this pressure release valve will pop open, and this will start to rock. When it starts to rock gently, there we go. Now we're just waiting for this to start rocking, and then we'll time it for 45 minutes from the beginning of when this starts rocking. And we'll also adjust the heat if we need to make sure that that it's going gently and not just really rattling away. Okay, this is what we're looking for. We've got a gentle rocking motion going. We're going to start the timer for 45 minutes, and I'll be back to you soon. So we're waiting for the pressure canner to come down to room temperature. But I wanted to show you this that I saw on Pinterest, so I can't really take credit for the idea, but it really has helped me with organization and saving space. Every time I buy a case of jars, they come with a lid and a ring on it. Well, I don't need that many rings. I don't store my canned goods with rings on it because I want to see if there's a failure of a lid, you know, and if something's exploded or gone bad. I need to see that. So I take the rings off. Well, to be able to store them, I saw on Pinterest that you just take a wire hanger and take it apart. You can store a whole lot of rings on there. And of course, you can make this a lot fancier, but this suffices for me. I hang it up in my pantry and I've got rings that are ready to go. Another thing that I've done, I've jarred up all of the broth. I also cut up an onion and put it in there, and we will use that for cooking. I'll make a rice out of it with the mushroom flavor, and it's got a little bits of mushroom and some onion. Sometimes I will make a stir fry or something like that with it, and it just really helps to improve the flavor. Got my husband thinking that I'm a really good cook. Okay, the canner's cooled down a little bit. I'm going to show you how I take off the weight and how to open your canner safely so that you'll know and you don't have any accidents. First of all, the weight comes off. Do not take it off until it's done steaming. And then the next thing you want to double check is make sure that the button has gone down. Otherwise, it's still going to be extremely hot. There are times where I just let this come to a complete cool down, but right now I want to get a second load going and I don't have the time to do that. So if you'll watch, I'm opening it away from me. There is steam, but it's not coming towards me. There's no splashes or anything coming towards me. You can see here that I'm putting these jars on a kitchen towel. I'm going to leave them alone for 24 hours so that they can come down to room temperature. At that point, I'm going to remove the rings and I'm going to label them with the contents and the date before I put them in storage. Now, another thing I want to discuss with you is I don't really save a whole lot of money by canning mushrooms myself. What I figured out is it cost me $16.15 for 5 pounds of mushrooms. And of that, I got 13 jars, which were the half-pint jars. So it cost me $1.24 a piece. For roughly the same size jar, an 8-ounce jar of mushrooms would cost me $2.12 at the store. I saved a whole whopping $11.41 just canning mushrooms. Broth is about $4.99 per quart. And I've got roughly $20 worth of mushroom broth that I added some onion to. One of the things that I am going to try to work on this summer is once my garden starts producing is showing you how to cook with the things that you're getting out of your garden. A lot of people don't know how to cook with real fresh ingredients. There's a lot of tips and tricks and things that I can show you that will make things so much easier for you. Well, that's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. Oh, and one more thing. I hope to see you again soon.